Happy Sunday to everybody. Xander Schauffele wins the PGA championship. Bryson DeChambeau, some call him YouTube sensation, gave him everything he could handle. And Scottie Scheffler broke out of jail and was bringing it today. So we'll dive into everything. I got some thoughts on Xander and the reaction just of his overall career. Bryson, who went from heel on the PGA Tour, and a guy that, let's face it, a couple years ago when he was in the little tussle with Koepka, people used to boo him on the course. He's now a fan favorite. Scottie Scheffler's mugshot will live on forever, and is truly. We'll dive into that because that was an all-time internet moment, just an all-time story, as well as some other thoughts that I've had over the last, 48 hours. Live derailing Jon Rahm's career. Lee Hodges finished 12 under. He was in the emergency room passing kidney stones Tuesday and Wednesday. And yeah, just some thoughts on the course. But overall, very entertaining Sunday. Obviously, a lot of birdies, historic amount of birdies, really. And yeah, Xander Schauffele, PGA champion, finally wins a major. But before we dive into the golf, I actually just purchased last night some tickets. Luke Combs here, not this weekend, but next weekend is coming to Glendale. I was like, yeah, Maria, let's go. So I got a couple tickets. And then this morning I woke up and I saw clips from Levi Stadium where Luke was playing, and George Kittle was slamming beers stone cold style. Brock Purdy was passing out beers. Didn't look like he was drinking, but looked like a fun concert, and I plan on attending. So if you want to attend a concert, if you want to attend an event, sports, pro or college, I've been locked into these hockey playoffs. I don't pretend to be a hockey guy, but I've watched more hockey probably in the last 3 weeks than I have in my entire life, and they're fantastic. Vancouver's my squad, so we got a big Game 7 coming up. They got bald coaches, so that's why I latched onto them. Highly recommend watching. It's just highly entertaining. It's like UFC meets hockey sticks. It meets the Mighty Ducks. It's an elite product. I understand why you hockey people talk up the playoffs because it's fantastic. You want to go to a game, my friends at Game Time have you covered. So here's the key. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I could start with Scotty, though it's been a couple days, but we will dive into it because that was just that added a lot to the golf tournament. But last week when Xander Schauffele got curb stomped on Sunday by Rory, so many people, and listen, people often ask me, like, what football podcast do you listen to? I'm like, I don't really listen to many football podcasts. I actually listen to a lot more golf podcasts. And I think sometimes the golf media, like any media that covers a sport, sometimes can be a little too close to the sun. I think they were definitely early on with the live stuff, a lot with this golf rollback, which is going to happen. And I think they struggle to just take it from the consumer standpoint. Just the majority of people that enjoy watching golf on their couch, that go out and hack it around a little bit. And Xander got crucified last week. Choke artist, never going to win, can't get it done. Rory shot like 60 under on Sunday. There is not a soul, maybe Tiger Woods in his prime, that would have had a chance against that version. And I understand Xander has not won a major up until today, but the way he was talked about, like he's some complete choke artist. And I was like, I don't know if I really see that. We have definitely seen some people in golf choke over the years. And obviously Xander has had some moments that he would like back. There's a famous one against Hideki, which, again, even if he doesn't fuck up on hole 16 at the Masters, not sure he wins that tournament. But they mentioned today on the broadcast, and if you go to his Wikipedia page and you type in performance in majors, he has yellows all over it. Why? Because you get a yellow for a top 10. Coming into today, he had 12 top 10s in majors. He had 6 top 5s. So in the biggest moments in a sport where Let's face it, a lot of guys let you down. This guy constantly shows up. Is he Tiger Woods? Is he Phil Mickelson? Is he Rory or Scottie? No, he's not. But he is clearly, by a mile, one of the best players on the PGA Tour, I would say now for 3 or 4 years running. And here's the thing in golf. It is not like the team sports that we all watch. This is not football or basketball. Today, the Knicks had 2 options. They could win or they could lose. Obviously, they got destroyed. But they didn't have an option. Well, we finished third. We did okay. In golf, that's not, you don't win or you lose. So when you're constantly rattling off seconds and thirds, even last week, when Rory destroyed him on Sunday, he beat everyone else in the field, which next year Quail Hollow is hosting a major. And Quail Hollow, don't blame me if you didn't watch, but I did a lot of it, was playing dramatically harder than this week. He beat everybody in the field beside Rory by 3 shots. That's why he made $2.6 million. So when you watch Xander Schauffele, and I texted a couple buddies this when he was walking up to the putt on 18, I think he makes this because I wasn't that confident. We'll get into Bryson here in a minute. If he makes this, like this guy's going to be a multiple time major champion, multiple time. And I always enjoy in this sport when a guy like Steve Young once famously said in the 95 Super Bowl to Gary Plummer, take the monkey off my back. The reason there was a monkey on Steve's back all those years, 1, he was trying to live up to Joe Montana. And 2, it's hard to win a Super Bowl. It's hard to get it done. But anyone that watched Steve Young, like I did when I was a kid, and I used to argue with my dad a lot about this, I'm like, Steve just as good as Joe, even though I never really watched Joe play. And I was probably wrong. But the point is, like, Steve's a championship level player. It's going to happen. If you watch Xander long enough, which everyone in the golf media does, like, that's a championship level player. We've all seen some random champions. Like Scottie Scheffler, Rory, and Tiger don't win every major. And it was just cool to watch him get it done. And the shot he hit on 18, most of us more than most are hitting it all over the place on any golf round. So we have a lot of, approach shots like the one he had on 18, where his golf ball was outside of the sand trap and his feet were probably 3 or 4 feet below the ball. And let's face it, most of us, even good players, chunk it, flare it way left, do something really bad. I think, obviously, the chip shot and the putt will be so far his most memorable moment of his career. But I think that shot from the bunker is the best shot of his career, given what was on the line. And as he mentioned to Nance, once he was hosting the trophy and kind of giving his speech to Amanda on the 18th green, is like, I didn't want to go into a playoff against Bryson. Because let's face it, if he went into a playoff against Bryson, we all would have thought Bryson was going to win. And if that had taken place in some hypothetical world, what are you supposed to say? Yeah, he lost to Bryson, a guy that's won the U.S. Amateur, won the U.S. Open, been winning tournaments for about 15 years now at every level, and is easily one of the best players of his generation. But I'm glad Xander got this done. So we can stop talking about like he's never going to get it. That's not usually the way it works, especially when you just look at it from like a statistical standpoint. If you put yourself in the mix as often as he does, you're bound to win one. And the reality is, when you're as talented as Xander, you're probably bound to win several. Because Phil Mickelson, who's a better player, obviously, than Xander, and even if Xander, takes the most advantage possible of his career, will not end up with the resume of Phil Mickelson. But Xander had 12 top 10s in majors before he finally won one. Phil had 17. So when you're in the mix that often, eventually something's going to fall your way. When you're that good, you're that long, and you've just been in these moments that many times. It's why as the cream started rising as today went, the 2 guys who were in the mix the most kind of were there when the dust settled. And speaking of Bryson, we're not that far removed when everyone in the golf world, but even I would say the random sports fan that follows like stars, we're kind of shitting on the guy, making a lot of fun of him. And listen, is he a weird cat? 100%. Golfers in general are. They play a sport by themselves. This is not a team game. And Bryson is probably the weirdest and does the quirkiest stuff. But I think since Bryson ballooned like he was playing defensive tackle for the Dallas Cowboys, he's actually become much more likable. Because I would say several years ago, everyone was on the side of Koepka. Now, clearly that was kind of, I don't know if it was a manipulated beef. They ended up playing a match, and now they're buddies on Live. But I saw today, and you saw all week, people rooting for Bryson. You know why? He's fun. I've been following his YouTube page for a while. It's really entertaining. And here's the thing about Bryson, and we'll get into Rahm here in a little bit. Live clearly is not for everybody to keep their talents and their abilities at the highest of levels. Bryson DeChambeau went to Live because they offered him a ton of money, and Phil Mickelson is probably his closest mentor. I don't know if they still are, but definitely several years ago when he made the jump, he idolized Phil because they're both kind of different. Here's the thing about Bryson, though, that you could put him on the Korn Ferry Tour, you could put him on the Asian Tour, you could put him on any tour, and he'd still give you everything he has. He's not married. He doesn't have kids. He is a golf addict. And since losing the weight and creating these new 3D clubs, which he talks about on his YouTube page, he has become a dominant major player. Augusta, a lot of people made fun of him because several years ago he claimed it was par 67. And then he proceeded to shoot like 75, and everyone laughed at him. Well, he's kind of figured that out because he was right in the mix this year. If it wasn't for a couple bad chips, he would have been right there with Scottie. And then today, I mean, he's got to be kicking himself because there's a short par 4, which he parred. He did not birdie hole 10. And he's just a special, entertaining player. And golf doesn't have many of those. Most golfers are pretty boring. They don't bring much to the table beside their golfing ability. Guys like Tiger that are superstars come around once in a generation. Sometimes you skip a generation, and we're currently doing that. It took Scottie Scheffler getting arrested and putting into a jumpsuit, I would say, to transcend his fame, and it's still nowhere near Arnold Palmer, Tiger Woods, and some of these athletes. Hell, Rory is a much bigger star from a name recognition standpoint. But I think Bryson has thrown his hat in that ring. And if you go to his YouTube channel and you see the following and the views his videos get, I'll promise you this, he's resonating with young people. And us older people really enjoy watching him play. Why? He doesn't look like anybody else. He doesn't swing like anybody else. He doesn't play like anybody else. All of his clubs are the same length. He hits the ball like 350 yards, and it seems like he could swing a little harder if he tried. So I'm glad Bryson was in the mix. I hope he's in the mix every single one of these majors. And I've been saying this for a while when it comes to Live. We really miss him. He is missed. Why? Because he's one of the rare needle movers in the sport. I respect the hell out of Xander. I think he's been one of the better players, clearly, of the last half decade. He's not as entertaining as Bryson. He doesn't get people to the TV. He doesn't create social memes that everyone's talking about. So I'm just glad people have kind of embraced the quirky, weird guy, because when he's on the television screen, it's hard to look away. We are this close to crowning an NBA champ. And with action heating up on the court, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. There are only so many games left, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. Don't miss out, or you'll have to wait until the next NBA season to place your bets. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your squad, and place your first bet. It's that simple. New to DraftKings? Listen up. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Let me preface this by saying someone died on Friday morning, and it was a volunteer, awful tragedy. I mean, that's terrible. Embarrassing for the tournament. Clearly, the situation of getting into the tournament was a debacle. Was really, really bad. And texting with Jason Sobel, who was there for SiriusXM, it's pretty clear no tournament's ever coming back here from a major standpoint. So the issues with the logistics, the ingress, egress, as they like to call it, I know those words very well from the Mark Davis Stadium pursuit, were an embarrassment. They really were. Because even Will Zalatoris said that he walked from his Airbnb because he after the Scottie Scheffler situation happened, it wasn't even worth it to try to battle through traffic. With all that being said, I do think the Scottie Scheffler arrest is the best thing and most interesting thing to happen to golf in years. And I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, they put the guy in an orange jumpsuit. That mugshot is something that will live on for a long, long time. And one of the knocks on Scottie is he's pretty boring. He's a God-fearing man, talks about his faith very consistently, openly, and basically daily. He's married. He now has a child. There's not much there in terms of entertainment value beside his golf shots, which he clearly is the best golfer in the world. But when you get arrested and you get put in an orange jumpsuit and you say after your round on Friday, one of the sheriffs looked at you and said, "Do you want the full experience?" And he said, "Sure." And he ate a sandwich and he stretched for his round in jail. I don't know if we're ever going to get that again. And in a day and age when professional golf is really struggling to move the needle, to get casuals to tune in, a sport that is losing viewers at 10 to 20% clips, it's in a bad spot. They needed this moment. They really did. And I'm glad it happened. The only shitty part for myself is that it happened on East Coast time at like 3 a.m. I took a couple late sleeping pills. Hadn't been sleeping well last week. Wanted to get up pretty early. Kind of came to at like 6:15, 6:20. And I remember being a little out of it. Melatonin's not sleeping pills, but I take about 35 milligrams. Looked at my phone, and all these people are texting me pictures of them. I didn't even know what was going on. And then you wake up, and Jeff Darlington, who I'm ready for him to like break the Tua contract or talk to me about Tom Brady returning from retirement, is just on the ground floor getting the visuals. And by the time I kind of came to put on my clothes, walk out, he's teeing off. Then he birdies one and shoots 5 under. I think it's one of the greatest non-Tiger moments. And Tiger's had a lot of great ones on and off the course in my lifetime watching golf. The entertainment standpoint, how great social media was. I truly believe, and social media can be a negative place. It can be where a lot of angry people go to hang out. I thought it really flexed his muscles. It made me laugh over and over and over again. And anytime you can put a smile on my face or put a smile on everybody's face, because that's what it was constantly doing, I'm here for it. But I do think the most remarkable thing about Scottie Scheffler is on Saturday, where he clearly was running out of adrenaline, the aftermath of getting detained, arrested, put in a jumpsuit. He was bad. He shot his first over par round in basically a calendar year. And then today, you look up and he's storming back. He ends up finishing in the top 10. He was in jail on Friday morning. His caddy, because his son is graduating high school, left. Ted Scott, who's Bubba Watson's caddy forever, leaves to come with Scottie. And since they paired up, they have become a dominant duo. And Scottie ended up having like the local pasture for the PGA Tour caddy for him, and he wasn't right. And it didn't go well. And then he shot, I think, 5 under today. Here's what I know. And like I said, this is not football or basketball where you feel like this is a lock. I'm recording this before the Nuggets Minnesota game. Like, I'll be shocked if the Nuggets lose. Like, there are certain things we like to say in football and in, game 7 of a baseball series. Like, this is a lock. You can never say that in golf because it's a field of 150 people. So even Tiger in his prime, Jack in his prime, Scottie in his prime, there are a lot of variables. There's not 15 other guys could be having career weeks, and you have a couple bad hole stretch, it can be a problem. I truly believe this to my core. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, Scottie Scheffler 40-1. And the thing I thought what gave me hesitation was his wife's about to have a baby. He's going to be sleeping weird. His practice schedule could be a little bit off. It would not have faced him. If he wasn't detained and arrested, all charges have been dropped. Scottie's a free man. I think I don't know if he wins this, but he would have been right there. I truly believe in my soul. And I don't like doing futures because I don't like having my money held up for so long. But right now he's 4-1 to win at Pinehurst. I think he is a lock to win at Pinehurst. I think he is a lock. And I think it'll cap off if he wins multiple majors. He'd be the lock player of the year. He'd be having one of the great seasons of all time. The jail detention incident will add to the legend. Because one thing Scottie needed was something crazy, was something to just draw everyone in. And Bryson has had that nonstop. Bryson went from like 200 pounds to 250 pounds. He was eating like 9,000 calories a day and trying to hit the ball 380 yards. He transcended golf. If you followed sports, you kind of knew who Bryson was. Beefy Bryson. Putting his both arms up at Bay Hill. He had moments. He was getting in constant fights with Brooks Koepka, who was the most accomplished champion on the PGA Tour. Scottie was just a great golfer. They talked about God a lot. Had a child, like playing golf. And now, when you think Scottie Scheffler, you will think that orange jumpsuit. So, like I said, I truly believe this. It's the most interesting thing to happen to golf in a long, long time. Speaking of what's not interesting anymore, the LIV PGA Tour conversation. Like, I'm bored of it. Just tell me when there's a deal. Tell me when they're getting together. Here's the thing with Bryson. Like I said, I think Bryson could play. If you forced him to play on the Korn Ferry Tour, he'd be fine. If you forced him to only do YouTube golf and show up at the majors, I think he would be fine. He is the ultimate lone wolf. DJ a couple years ago when LIV first started, he was playing at a really high level, went on LIV, dominated. Now he's kind of a joke. Jon Rahm is a good example. I've said this over and over. I don't have any ill will. I don't care. And I would have done the same thing. Take all the money to go to that tour. But I think we have to embrace what they do on that tour does not get you ready for this. And it really has Jon Rahm rattled. If you took Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen to the UFL and they had to play for a team in the UFL, and then once a month when the Ravens or Bills played another playoff team, they had to start a game and play that week for the NFL team, they would not be as good. Because in professional sports, just like in any competitive industry, iron sharpens iron. And I think Jon Rahm's comments earlier this week, where he was asked about, the situation and not being able to play PGA Tour events and he said, I still view myself as a PGA Tour member. Jon Rahm was very, I wouldn't say as strong as Rory, but was in that mold of being very anti-LIV. He thought what they did was a joke. The shotgun starts, the 54 holes. He even said at the Masters, I want to play 72 holes. He is a good example of a guy that used these tournaments on the PGA Tour to stay dialed in. And just a year ago, right around this time, it was clear he was one of the best players in the world. And it looked like we were going to have like a 3-horse race, Scottie, Rahm, and Rory. All-time great players, major champions, guys that were just going to go down as absolute legends. And Rahm's not 40 years old. His career's not over like DJ, who's clearly mailed it in. And I don't even blame DJ for mailing it in. But I think we have to acknowledge he's mailed it in. Jon Rahm wants to play well. But LIV does not prepare him for that. And I don't care how many $1,000 games he gets at Whisper Rock or Silverleaf. It's not doing it. He was terrible at the Masters. He missed the cut at this tournament. This tournament, while I was very entertained on my couch, was not a difficult major. Someone texted me, they're like, everyone talked shit last year at LACC. There were like 12 guys under par. Look at the leaderboard today of how many guys shot under par. I think the number's like well over 50. I didn't look at it right before I walked in. This is the lowest winning score ever, partly because it wasn't that difficult. The other thing, the defense of the course was it was really long. Well, you're telling me if Jon Rahm last year came into this tournament, not a very difficult course, and his defense is length, well, he's one of the longer players in the sport, he would have been fine. I'm not saying he wins the tournament, but missing the cut? I watched him a lot on Thursday. I'm like, this guy is liable to helicopter a club at a fan. This guy is going to snap something over his knee. He ended up throwing a club, but it's sad. Like it really is. And this is where I think I can relate to most people who love golf. This whole thing is not working out for anybody. Everyone on the PGA Tour that matters is super rich. All the guys that matter on LIV are even richer. Like, I don't care about who's getting equity, how much money this, no one, we're just talking about rich guys. Like, none of these guys are some practice squad player on the Arizona Cardinals trying to make the 53 man. Xander, whether he would have won this tournament or would have shanked it on 18, is still living on the biggest house on the block he lives on. And he probably has several more. So, yeah, he turned down a lot of money to go to LIV. It doesn't ultimately matter. He's at the point where most things in his life are free. He hasn't been to a commercial airport probably in 6-7 years. Just like all the other top 30, 40 players in the sport and majority of the LIV guys. But one thing LIV has done by offering Jon Rahm so much money he couldn't turn it down. Someone on Golf Channel said it was $500 million. I think it's fair to assume it's somewhere between 350 and 500. Is it derailed his career? And that's sad. Like, the reason we're so excited for this NFL season is to see how special all the top quarterbacks can be. Like, can Lamar finally get over the hump? Can Josh Allen take down Patrick Mahomes? What is Joe Burrow going to look like? We're talking about guys that have a chance to be all-time players. It's why we watch professional sports, to see the best of the best, to watch Joe Montana, to watch Tom Brady, to watch Steph Curry, to watch these guys in the peak of their powers in the biggest moments. And we're just getting this guy because of the tour that he chose to play on, who's lost it. And who's kind of told you without telling you, yeah, this is not working for me. But they paid me so much fucking coin, I couldn't turn it down. And I think the ultimate result of this, for me, is just kind of sadness, because it just kind of sucks. And I think that sums up the entire situation, where just going back and forth, you got 48-year-old Tiger Woods, who's just not going to be making cuts anymore, running point on this. And I've seen a lot of people talk about, when you're doing a business deal of this magnitude, why are there this many players involved? Like, they're going to get so much money no matter what. Why don't we have some people that know business, that know what will do the best for us, the people that essentially pay the bills by watching, because NBC and CBS gave the tour so much money? The reason it doesn't matter for LIV, they get no television ratings because no one watches. It doesn't matter. They have a backing. But that's not normal. That's unrealistic. Why most people thought that they just started that to eventually force a merger with the PGA Tour and get the access to the courses and the television contracts. But if you would have told me a year ago that Jon Rahm would be a non-factor, I just wouldn't have believed you. Now, it's part of the deal. You have bad tournaments. It's part of the sport. But to just be this shitty, I think sucks. A couple other things. I still can't get over Scottie in the mugshot. And guys having the mugshot t-shirts on the course on Friday. Scottie, famously the Tiger with some of his women on the shirts and Tiger giving little smiles. It wasn't quite that, but I think Scottie knew, which it's probably sucked for him Friday morning getting arrested, detained, and he got lucky. He did get very lucky that there was a rain delay. And who knows, maybe they could have played in the rain and they kind of pushed it back for him, because that would have been a tough one for the Valhalla president, board members, and just club operators to ever shake. But I guess jail is the only thing that can kind of slow him down. Hit on a couple quick things. The golf course. I don't think we're ever coming back here. I think that's pretty well established. I found today entertaining because of Bryson making the run at Xander and seeing if Xander could finally get over the hump. But the thing I love about major golf is the difficulty. Like I don't need even par. Just like if you want to give me 50, the final score, the relation to par is kind of irrelevant to me. It's more about the difficulty of the holes. And knowing when you're watching a guy chase someone, this is going to be a really hard 17th hole. If you miss it in the left, you're boned, you're getting an automatic bogey, and double is in play. That was not the case. How many doubles did you feel were even remotely close the last couple days watching all the leaders? Xander made one, but it was a freaky one because he airmailed a green, he got a shitty lie, and he hit a bad chip. But when you watch most majors, you'll see it at Pinehurst. When you miss a green in the wrong spot, you're done. You got no shot. And that's what this course just didn't have. Clearly, it was really long. And beside Bryson, these guys are all hitting 5 irons and 3 irons into greens. But part of the problem is they're not us. You put a 5 iron into a guy's hand on a straightaway shot with a soft green, they're going to hit it 20, 25 feet. So I think the tale of this week, beside Xander winning it and obviously Scottie getting arrested, is this course was just way too easy for these guys. And part of the reason I think we all thought it was going to be hard for Xander to implode is because there just aren't big numbers out on this course. And the moment you get a bogey, you can easily birdie the next hole. And that just shouldn't be the case at these majors, right? Augusta's its own unique operation. And when we go across the pond, whether it's the old course, whether it's whatever else is in the rotation, they're very, very dependent on the weather. When the weather goes, it's really difficult. When the weather does not, it's not. But that's where golf started. It's been going over there for hundreds of years. We're cool with it. But when you play the U.S. Open and now the PGA Championship, which is trying to be like the poor man's version of the U.S. Open, I kind of want some difficulty. I don't need impossible, but there should be multiple holes, especially coming down the stretch, where this is going to be a tough par. And if you miss on a drive in the wrong spot, buckle up, because par is by no means a gimme. And a bogey is a major, major option. And that was not the case today. Just look at the scores. I mean, Bryson shot 7 under, Xander shot 6 under, which was entertaining. I'm not acting like I wasn't riveted on my couch, but I watch all these tournaments. That felt like a really, really good PGA Tour tournament. Not one of the 4 majors of the year. A couple other quick things. When I was a kid, I vividly remember multiple times my dad got kidney stones. And one time I'm like, is he going to die? You could hear him moaning. It just looked, it was hard to grasp when you're like 11, 12 years old, even what a kidney stone is. I'm not even sure I quite knew. I just knew he was sick. But he was basically just bedridden for multiple days in complete shambles. And I've never had one. I've known a couple people that have. And every single human says, or every guy says, I think women can have them too. But obviously the guy, the tracks is a little smaller, is the worst experience you can have. And Lee Hodges, who I don't know much about, he finished T12 this week. had kidney stones on Tuesday and had to go to the emergency room. And Marty Smith, who's SEC guy, talked to Lee, and he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what was the pain? And Lee said a 47. And I just remember going back into my dad's room and seeing a 50-year-old guy curled up in the fetal position. And I think about that now. I know it's like a calcium buildup, something I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Well, might wish it on a couple enemies, but to have kidney stones early in the week, go to the emergency room, and then probably have one of the best tournaments of the year for yourself, maybe of your career. Pretty cool moment. I would say if you told most non-superstars, hey, would you take a kidney stone on Monday or Tuesday to get a top 15 in a major? I think most would sign up for it. Even though it's not going to be a fun Monday or Tuesday, once you get to Sunday, it's all gravy. And that check's pretty large. Shane Lowry, 62 on Saturday, was pretty fun to watch. Just kind of looks like an everyman. He's major champion, big burly guy. If you had to go top 5 people to have a bunch of beers with on the PGA Tour, Shane Lowry might be like top 3. He looks relatable to like type guys you just play golf with your friends, your dad's friends. He seems like a fantastic guy, and he's obviously a really good player, but he had a pretty good chance to have the lowest round in the history of a major championship. He had a very good look on 18. He just missed a little bit below the hole, but the dude was just smiling ear to ear. He really was. And that was another thing, back to Bryson. One thing we miss with Tiger being removed is just emotion. Like, Xander's not a very emotional player. Even on 18, when he won the major, he like put his hands up, but he wasn't like doing huge fist pumps. What made Tiger so special was obviously the dominance, but was the emotion that you felt after every big shot, after every big putt. He just kept you on the edge of your seat. And one thing I think Bryson has really embraced is like, play to the fucking crowd, bro. Get into this. Make the people feel you. And he was really doing it. And some, sports writers will say, he's just doing it for the cameras. Well, I hope he was, because Tiger wasn't doing it for the cameras. This is entertainment. And I'm just glad to have Bryson back in my life 4 times a year, because I was rooting for him. I really was. And that was fun. But I think the one thing that this PGA Championship will always be remembered for is the detainment of the number 1 player in the world, Scottie Scheffler.